Welcome to Mental Health Monday. I'm so glad you're joining us tonight. I'm Jerri Walker, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. And this is part of our series, Unscripted Story. And tonight, especially, we're going to focus on grief. I know we do a lot, but you know what? This year especially, it seems like it's where a lot of people are living. And I have a good friend with me tonight. His name is John Lodal. And I've known John a little over a year, and he had a very significant loss, which he's going to talk about and tell his story tonight. Welcome, John. I'm so glad you agreed to come and be a part of this tonight.
Thank you,
Tell
Jerri.
us just a little bit about yourself. You've been in Boise for...
Very good. I've been a Boise resident since 1980, so I think that puts us at 41 years. I was recruited here by Hewlett-Packard, and I was married just before I came out here, so there was a whole lot of things going on in 1980, but this has been home for a long time. I was married to my wife, Pam, for 39 years, and that's Pam. And that's Pam. Now you got a visual. I lost Pam to cancer on Halloween 2019. And ever since then, everything has changed, as you might guess. And there's been a long journey that has had to be engaged on this long path. And I'll tell everyone watching right now that Jerri has helped me professionally along this path, and I am very, very grateful for that help. I think I am doing the work, but it is indeed a long journey. So Pam fought cancer for 4 years. She was initially diagnosed in 2015 after I had been diagnosed with the identical cancer in 2012. And she went through the therapy. She had to go back again in 2017, and she had what's called a laryngectomy. She became a neck breather, and that bought her about 2.5 years. But there was tremendous intimacy in our marriage when we knew that this was very finite time. I can now look back with some hard-gained perspective on the good, the many benefits, the many blessings in my life, especially those last years with Pam. We pressed down the let's live this life accelerator pretty hard.
And you also have family?
I do. We have a son who lives in town with his wife and my 3 grandchildren. And our daughter lives in Lombard, Illinois, and she was married in June 2019. Pam was still in pretty good shape for that day. So we went into hospice with respect to Pam's cancer in September of 2019. And a good friend of mine who was a philosophy major and quite an intelligent person gave me a couple suggestions that, John, stay in the moment. Be right there, right now, and experience the whole thing that you're gonna have being a caregiver to your wife. And then always try to seek gratitude. And those 2 pieces of advice were absolutely solid gold to me. Those were 2 foundational pieces that kept me from blowing to smithereens. And if I ever had a difficult day seeking gratitude, my go-to was that Pam chose me at all, that I got to be her husband for those 39 years. So what got me through the early days of raw grief in late 2019 was standing on those 2 foundational pieces of being in the moment and seeking gratitude where I could. There was so much else that was going on at that point, and that's when I met you, which was a good thing. I did a lot of reading just after Pam died, and one of the first books I read was It's Okay If You're Not Okay by Megan Devine. And one of the things that stuck with me from that book was her definition of the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is something that cannot be avoided. Pain is something that if you really want to actively engage with it, that's what you do. You look at it and say, have a seat, come on in, I know you're not going anywhere. Suffering is more in the order of no appetite, sleeping poorly. Those are things you can manage. But the takeaway that I got from her book was that I really needed to invite pain to sit next to me and to welcome it and to experience with it, because I couldn't ignore it. I needed to actively engage with what was happening to me. And so that was extremely good advice from that author.
Yeah, and when you say that, so many times, and I know we talked about it too, that there is that propensity right afterwards. It's so raw. The pain is so real, and it hurts so badly that there is this need to want to just escape, just to try to figure out how can I just get away from this. Do you remember having those feelings too? Because I think if someone's out there listening, hearing that they have to be in the moment and yet it is so important, is difficult.
Oh yes, it is. It is. The way I used to describe myself in early grief was befuddled and heartbroken, and I still think that's a pretty good description. My mind was just blown. I could not believe what had happened. And I had never watched someone, at the end of a chronic illness, come to the end of their life. That was an experience that was going to take a while for me to digest. So the heartbroken, this is one of the great benefits of the great blessings of my life that I've been trying to focus on, is that I was part of a great love. She was the woman for me, and the fact that I got to have those many years. Initially, that was the source of a lot of anger, and you and I talked about this. There was a time when I really couldn't speak civilly to the Almighty because I had viewed Pam as something of mine, something that had been taken from me. And it took a while, and this process continues. But I now see that she was never really mine, and that was difficult to get to. But once I began to see that, I was able to make some progress. One of the other things, I spoke to my brother. A lot of times when you're talking about grief or bouncing back from something, rising strong from something, you look in the Bible at the book of Job, and Job never did it for me. But I took a close look at the scriptural story in John 9. This is where Jesus and the disciples meet a blind man, and one of the disciples says, "Rabbi, is it this man's sin or his father's sin that caused him to be blind?" And Christ said, "No, this man is blind for the greater glory of God. You just can't see the whole plan." And then he goes with the spit and the mud, and he brings his sight back. But that one resonated with me. Whenever the Son of God is saying something, I listen especially carefully. I cannot see the whole plan. Wherever she is now, she was needed there. I wish that wasn't the case, but I know that this is not without reason. I can't see all those pieces. I can't figure that plan out. So this becomes a test of faith for me. This is something that I slowly awakened to on my back deck. Is that, as my theology hews pretty closely to classic United Methodist theology. And I had a vision of heaven, and that everybody gets in. This is the way that Christ said to us, we are justified by faith, not by deeds. But I had trouble putting her in the picture. I hoped that she was in a spot that was pain-free and that was defined by love and with others that had gone on before her. But that hope lived here, and getting it here in terms of a belief, that was a challenge. I still don't know exactly why that was a challenge, but in the end, it was a test of my faith. I was the one who had to make that shift to say, yep, I believe that is what's happened here.
And I think that's such an important point you make, John, that this does, in many cases, test our faith, or what we thought it was. And it knocks us off, and that questioning is such an important part of our healing, of our journey. And sometimes I don't know that the answer does come, but it is okay. That questioning is so important. And so many times people want to come alongside us and just give us the platitudes, like, they're in a better place. No.
Don't I know those platitudes?
They're not in a better place. The better place
would be right here
with me. And so many times it's a whole educational process you're the grieving person, and you're helping to educate people that, no, please don't say that. That is not helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because there may be some hearing that tonight that are in that questioning. And absolutely, okay. And the questioning may go on until the end. I mean, it's who we are.
Yes.
And it's trying to grasp something that is not within our grasp so many times to understand.
Well, one of the things that there's been numerous surprises, and you and I talked about this, that I can now see there were all kinds of interesting epiphanies. The easiest one that I can tell you is that it took me 8 months to ask myself the question, or to come to the realization that something in me died the same day Pam died. Like, why did that take 8 months? And I think there are some pretty sophisticated circuit breakers in here, and that a lot of them blew open when Pam died. And then when things started, some of these observations or just thoughts started to come back to me, I began to think, what's going on here? Why is this stuff showing up out of the blue? I really think those are some of those circuit breakers clicking back in, that all of a sudden, when it was deemed that I could handle rational thought like that, then those kind of thoughts would come back to me. And your analysis on that put me on pretty solid ground. But there's another point I wanted to make, and I'm going to talk to the camera now. One of the things I learned, I have experienced searing grief in the loss of Pam, but I believe that there is grief in every life. And I wasn't much of an empath before this. This entire adventure in losing my wife has awakened a half of my brain that was really pretty dormant for a long, long time. But I understand that there is grief, and it's intense to you because it's yours. You've lost something, you've been wronged, something awful has happened. We are all walking around with some of this, and as I continued my reading, one of the themes that came out that surprised me was that the next thing that I needed to focus on was, what was the new version of John going to be? Change was afoot. I was never going to be the same guy again after this. And for a while, when a lot of those circuit breakers were in open condition, I was wondering, do I get a vote? Do I get to influence who this new guy is? And I do. And so I've got some goals. I seek to be kind to myself and to everybody that I meet. I think this nation certainly needs more of that. One night when I was sitting on the back deck, the phrase "benefit of the doubt love," I said, that's what I want. That's what I would I'd like to try to give to other people, and just to simply be a better listener. So I got some ideas who I want this new guy to be, and I'm doing my best to bring that to fruition without being too much of a narcissist. I try to focus on other people as well.
So I wonder too, John, when we talk a lot about in the grief process, sometimes it feels like it is moving so slowly, and it's when you kind of stop and turn around, you can see that there has been movement. And when you think back to those early days and where you are today, and it's been, 13, did you say 13 months?
12 plus 5 is 17.
Oh,
17 months and a couple weeks.
17 months.
Yes.
So when you stop and you turn around and you just look at that path that you've taken, how would you describe where you are today as opposed to maybe where you were like a month out? Okay.
The metaphor that, people were always asking, how are you? So I really wanted to give them an answer. And the metaphor I used to use is that I'm a jigsaw puzzle with almost all the pieces not in place. And I still think that's a pretty decent visual. They're slowly but surely, the pieces come into place. That I was lucky to be married to Pam, that she's in some better place, that perhaps there is some level of communication between the interface that I can't see or touch her. But I am trying to find the balance of putting the grief in my bones. It's going to be with me the rest of my life. Pam is going to be with me the rest of my life, and have that effectively coexist with a zeal for living. I wish to honor her and my folks every day of the rest of my life. So that's one of the reasons I want to be that guy. But I enjoy my life. I'm fortunate. I survived cancer. I got through this, and I'm here for a reason, and I wish to leave it better than I found it while I'm here and still moving through. So being able to find that balance of coexistence of, yeah, that grief is there, that pain is there, it's not going anywhere, but can I also have that in me simultaneously with a real zest for life?
And do you have some, I know being in it and being in the moment and then having those restorative activities sometimes is a part of that balance. Now I know music is restorative for
Yes, ma'am.
you,
Yes.
and are there other activities that you enjoy that you know when you do it you can lose yourself for the moment and it gives you that little bit of relief that is always being sought after that incredible pain of loss?
Well, yeah, as you said, music's a biggie. There's one that came out of the woodwork that I didn't see coming. I enjoy cooking. I was never much in the kitchen. If Pam is taking a look down, why didn't you enjoy that while I was here? But I really like creating food. I'm a gardener, and last year I ate more of my garden than I ever had before, and that was terrific. Talk about locavore. It was grown 25 feet away. Let's consume it on site here. Physical fitness. I'm kind of curious as to how well I can maintain this 63-year-old body. So I enjoy being on my bike. I enjoy playing tennis, playing golf, skiing. I live in a great spot in the United States, and in general, I mean it's terrific to be retired in the United States. I had to learn how to live alone. That was an interesting process. I was in that whole house, and I haven't lived alone for a long, long time. That took a while. But I'm comfortable in my space now, and that's good.
Were there other surprises that you discovered in those first few months, or even now, that you just didn't realize that about yourself, or just about this grief process that you had not ever anticipated?
I'm seeking to live a more examined life. I don't think my life was unexamined before, but everything I do and say now, I want to make sure that represents the guy who I want to become. And there's a higher level of scrutiny than there was before. I think one of the overall destinations for this whole process, and I believe that applies to anyone who's dealing with grief, is to reach full acceptance here and here. And Pam and I were both recovering alcoholics, and so the serenity prayer means a lot to me. Lord, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I can't change Pam's death. Getting to acceptance is a key, and I get to see glimpses of it, and you've helped that a lot. I can see what it kind of looks like, but it's quite far out there. The searing white hot anger is not there so much anymore, but I still wake up shaking my head going, I can't believe this has happened. Why aren't you here? So
that it's not a linear process.
Not in the least.
It just is sometimes you're just there for a long time, and then you move back, and then you move forward, and it's just all of those things. Were there surprises about your village, the people that you always were with and depended on, had good times with? Were there situations or surprises about what you thought would happen and then maybe did or did not?
Well, so COVID played a big role in this.
Exactly.
So it's been pretty quiet around my house. I really have tried to go into this with no judgment. I just wanted to see what would happen in terms of who was with me on this journey and who was not. And so who was in each of those columns, there are certainly surprises there. Mm-hmm. There are people that keep in touch. There are people that have shied away. So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're busy folks and they're...
And I think it's important to normalize that, because some people, they might even be your best friends, but they are also suffering, and they see you suffering, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know what to say. So they ought to not do anything.
Yes.
Because they're so fearful that I don't want to bring up Pam's name because that I don't want to trigger that whole grief response again. I mean,
Yes.
I've heard...
As if them saying Pam's name would go, oh, and I did,
exactly.
yeah, right.
But it does, and I just, validating that part of the process of what you thought would happen and your friends, it changes. Grief changes everything.
Everything. You and I talked about this. There was a tremendous level of kinesis in the first year because everything was new. First this, first that. And then you get to the second year and you're like, oh, this is my life now.
Yeah.
And it's, so I was just getting used to reacting in that manner to brand new stuff. And I think I gotta dust off some new skills for the second year reaction. But it's never a dull moment, this journey through grief. And I know that a bunch of you guys are out there feeling the same way. I hope these words might help you here in some way.
Yeah, I really do appreciate you coming on and telling your story. And I think it is important, that second year piece. The first year is the intentionality around, I got through a day I've never had to get through. I got through that first Christmas, I got through that first Easter, and there is that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the second year, they're not coming back.
They're
my
not
loved
coming
one
back.
is not coming back, and now this is my life.
Mm-hmm.
And many times I hear that second year is even more difficult in some ways, because I believe sometimes in our heads we think I got to get to that 1 year anniversary and then, I can relax. But the second year is about that acceptance piece, as you talked about, maybe even a more understanding of what loss.
Yeah.
I've
always been a goals-driven individual, and I read Brene Brown's book. I think Dwayne was preaching in that for a while, and I'm hoping to be one of those guys that rises strong. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but I'm putting those pieces together, and I would like to demonstrate resilience, if I could, through this. And again, I'm doing this primarily to honor my wife. I want her to be proud of the guy I am and be that guy.
And I see, and for many of you that are listening, being strong in grief is acknowledging and being in it. That is the strength, and it takes incredible courage to do that, and strength to move through sometimes the hour. And especially if you've just lost someone, it can just stop you to the point where you don't know whether you can go on. And as we've said in so many of our Mental Health Mondays, if you are at that place, don't be there alone. Consider calling the church, call me. John will talk to you. We'll find someone.
Sure.
Don't do it alone, because community can make a huge difference in knowing that there are others that have been there, and maybe their journey looks a little different than yours, but they can understand and be there with you. So don't do it alone. John, is there anything that you would like to say that maybe you haven't said, or leaving a final thought for our audience?
I do. I was very glad that we did the hospice experience, that Pam got to do the final lap at home. That was a big deal. You might want to put that one in your back pocket. And through all her battles with cancer, she went 3 rounds with cancer before it got the upper hand. She was incredibly strong and courageous and fierce. And as I look back on how she experienced what was going on, and in knowing that the end was coming, I have nothing but admiration. So, let's go back to those first 2 pillars, right? Gratitude. Boy, are we lucky to be Americans, to be alive, to be living in Boise, wherever. And being in the moment. Be right here, right now. Love who you're with. Tell them that you love them. Do not let things go unsaid. We all have shelf lives. I feel relatively good about, the life that I had with Pam. We really went on and did had a number of adventures together, and I'm glad we did that. Somebody's going to die first. Somebody's going to get to live with grief, and somebody's going to depart. And that's part of the overall agreement that we've had living this life. And if you're part of a great love, it's going to hurt when your partner leaves. So that day is not today. Enjoy what you got right bloody now. And be grateful for all you have, so that when you look back, you're like, I got no regrets. I don't. I miss her. She was taken out by a cold-hearted disease that we couldn't stop. I'm so glad that there's not a lot of guilt. We just couldn't stop it. I appreciate you guys listening. All right, this is a difficult subject, and Americans are not real good with death. You do this better if you talk about it. At least if I talk about it. And finding somebody of the caliber of Jerri to talk to, if you're in that space, it's a really good idea too. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, John, for being here, and thank you for watching tonight. And maybe you know someone who's also going through this. You can share the Mental Health Monday with them, and so maybe it can be a resource for them. Your story matters. It is so important. It is sacred. And finding someone to listen, and the moment you begin to feel listened to is the moment you start to heal. So I encourage you to do that. And just know that you matter, and you are not alone, and your mental health matters. Thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll see you again next time.